over your government. It will be yours to take. This will be probably your only chance for generations.
Fox's Trey Yingst is in Tel Aviv.
Senior Israeli official tells Fox News that Iran's President Masoud Pezeshkian and Iran's supreme leader, the Ayatollah Khamenei, were targeted in the Israeli strikes against the capital of Tehran. There is currently a battle damage assessment underway to see if those strikes were successful. We also understand, according to Israeli sources, that the commanders responsible for ordering the mass murder of protesters in Iran earlier this year were targeted in these strikes. As this is ongoing, the Iranians are now responding not only against Gulf countries like the UAE and Qatar, they are also directly targeting Israel.
Iran, Israel, and Iraq announcing closures of their airspaces following that attack, which was carried out by land and sea. Now, while the U.S. is targeting military targets and ballistic missile sites, Israel is targeting Iranian leadership.
The Israeli code name for the assault on Iran is Operation Roaring Lion. It began with what were described by Israel's defense ministry as preemptive strikes. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu saying in a video statement that Iran must never be allowed to develop nuclear weapons. He promised the operation would allow brave Iranian people to take their fate into their own hands. Iran promised to respond if attacked. Explosions have been heard in northern Israel, with air defense systems trying to bring down incoming fire. Jonathan Savage, Fox News.
America is listening to Fox News.
Good morning. Welcome to Winning at Life, the Saturday morning financial show. I'm your host, Gregory Ricks. We've been bringing this show to you for a long time. I don't know, 16 years now? Crazy to think about that. And we'll see if we can go another 16 years. Look, it's the Money Show. We bring you insights to financial planning, investing, doing more with your money. Ultimately, I would say where you stand with savings, investing, retirements, accumulation, it is kind of a way of keeping score. It really is. It's like, how are you doing with that? You know, look, there's people that's like, I'm not worried about saving as long as I can get by week to week from now on. But there's just some magic to compounding, the thing that just fascinated me as a kid when I began to understand that. And keeping score. Like, one way is your cash report each week. Well, for me, it's each week, but maybe for you, it might be monthly, just to see where you stand on your business, your investments, your cash on hand, your emergency savings, those things. Is that improving or going down? And what we want it to do is to be improving over time. And one of the things is you don't make a dent early on. And that's just like your mortgage. It just, you know, when you get early into that mortgage, it doesn't seem like you're going to get anywhere. But you get a decade later and you're like, wow, I got a bunch of equity built up. So with that point said, I'm going to bring Dwayne Stein, host of Mortgage Gumbo, to the show right now. Hey, Dwayne, how are you doing?
Fantastic.
How'd you like that?
3.5 year lows on rates, Gregory. I'm doing as good as I've been doing in 3.5 years. So I'll super excited to be with you today.
Man, the tide is changing. How'd you like it, how I segued in to getting you?
I love that. You are a pro, 16 years. I mean, I would expect nothing less at all, sir.
Yeah, so couple big things, and I like conceptually where you're talking about building equity through real estate. I was looking at an article this morning, and it was kind of talking about, I just seen this, and I didn't do a deep dive into it. Like Peter Schiff says, home ownership is a money pit that depletes your savings, and then I saw another article, and let me see, do I have that up here? I just don't put a lot into that where they kind of say, well, maybe you shouldn't be a homeowner and such, and I think that's crazy to think that. But with that said, let's talk about rates, because you came right out the gate on that. And that is a big deal. And as I understand, we've gotten under 6%.
Yeah, we're sitting at 5.99%. And what's great about where we're at right now, we saw a little bit of that. It wasn't like for one day. It sat there all week. And when things happen, something will come out, a report will come out, and then it'll shoot back up. Yeah, I mean, our 30-year is now at, it's been since August of 22 that the rates have been this low. So, and that is kind of when everything in August of 22, all of a sudden things started to go the other way. That's when all the big hikes in the federal funds rate and all that stuff started happening. So, a 30 years at 5.99 today. And keep in mind, when we're talking about rates too, I want folks to understand this is on purchases, right, Gregory? Because a lot of people are hearing it, and that's great, but it's on purchases. Refinance rates are not quite as low as a purchase rate, okay? I want folks, especially if it's a cash out.
Why?
Well, because I think when it's coming to a purchase, right, it's the initial investment. And on the refinance side, when you're looking at it, even though they've proven they've had the home and all that, they just do not, the investors do not give as low of a rebate, so to speak, on the refinance rates. I don't know if there's any rhyme or reason, especially when it's somebody that's proven they're there, right? I almost tell people it's like when you've been with a cell phone company for 3 years, yet you see new customers getting a better deal than you get, right? So it's a little bit crazy there. So now, especially, it's more competitive if it's a rate term refinance versus cash out. What a rate term means is where you're just exchanging. Gregory comes to me, he's got 7%. He comes back to me, and now I give him 6.25. We don't pay off any debt, no cash. You're just basically exchanging out your interest rate. That's what a rate term refinance is. So cash out's a little bit more risky a lot of times, because when it's refinanced, think about this, Gregory. If we're doing somebody and we go, it's a first-time home buyer, we're telling them, especially when the rates were over the last 3.5 years, hey, let's put the least amount down. We know we're going to refinance down the road, right? So when you're looking at that, you're putting the least amount to get in, and now when you're refinancing it, when you're wanting to lower that, that's where they want to see the risk. But what benefits we're seeing right now is a lot of these houses that we're refinancing, they've got equity. So we've got a lot of folks that maybe bought a house at $200,000, but the initial appraisal was $207,000. Well, now we can use that $7,000 plus whatever it picked up over the last year and a half in appreciation, and that helps lower that loan to value. So we are able to get a much more competitive interest rate than in the past.
Interesting. Very interesting. So where?
And look,
go ahead.
I think when you're looking at purchases too, Gregory, one of the things, it takes a little while. And you know that, like, hey, we're sitting here saying, and what I like seeing this week is we stayed at this 5.9 to 6% all week. Now, do we get that another week? Because by the time people hear this show and go, hey, honey, we just heard Dwayne and Greg chatting about rates being at 5.99, and they start talking about it, and they call in 3 weeks, and some baloney jobs report comes back, and I'm like, oh, yeah, they're at 6.25 now. Not that that's a big, you know what I'm saying? But it's a mental thing. And that's why we always say you can't time the market.
But it's trending in a good way.
I like where it's at. And I think all the data is showing that this should continue. And I think, again, what do we talk about all the time? Mortgage rates have nothing to do with the federal funds rate, right? And these rates are going down without the Fed doing it. That's a short-term rate. It's a whole different ballgame. But, yes, what we're seeing is I think we're going to be in this area for a while. Maybe a little bit of a dip here, there, 5-10 basis points, maybe go to 6.10. But it's not where all of a sudden it's going to go back up to 6.75, right? We're not going to see that. I think those days are behind us.
So looking into the next quarter of this year, or even the third, and the Fed, where do you see this going?
I think from an interest rate standpoint, I think by the end of the year we could maybe see 30-year rates in the mid fives. A lot of the predictions, and all that, or really for rates to stay where they're at right now all year. And that's not a bad thing. Let me be clear on that, right? That's not a bad thing. Folks' buying power right now is so much higher than it was just 1 year ago. So that is not a bad thing. But I think we're going to be in the range within 0.5%, give or take, on the downside. And the upper side, Gregory, everything now, like, look, unfortunately, you wake up this morning and we're essentially at war with Iran now, right?
Yep.
How is the market going to respond to that? In the past, it's always been world strife is better for mortgage rates because everybody goes to the safe haven of mortgage bonds, right? They get scared with the – but that was nothing like the case when Ukraine and Russia went to war and have been at war. That had nothing, so that was more inflationary, and we saw mortgage rates go up when that happened. So there's a lot of factors out there that will have to – there's just so many moving parts in today's world that we've got to just wait and see. But I think we're in a good spot, Gregory, and at the end of the day, somebody buying a house today versus the same time last year, their payment's $197. Let's just go with $200, right? I like to use round numbers. Is $200 less a month for the same house? I mean, that's an amazing number when you think about it.
Yeah, that is a good number, and on an annual basis, much bigger.
Absolutely. And then if you go, hey, well, last year on a $300,000 house at $699, I could afford the $1,993. I like the lower rate. I'll keep paying that. Well, what we're seeing now, Gregory, is what we know we're going to see, and why, like you said, whoever wrote that article, this is what they miss out on owning real estate, because that person that could afford $1,993, even though their payment today at $599 is $200 cheaper, guess what? Now they could buy $335,000 to $350,000 in house. So now if they go, well, heck, I can afford the $1,993, the $200 or more. Well, now you're getting $35,000 to $50,000 more in house, in buying power, with that same payment. that's where this market, that's where all those brave folks over the last 3.5 years who have purchased, and all the homeowners, this is where you're going to start to see this equity and home appreciation and all this start to go up. You're not going to see like that article, oh, it's a waste of money, it's this and that. No. When mortgage rates go down, home appreciation goes up.
That's a good thought right there. Look, I think that is the goal, and still should be a goal, is having home ownership, because you create value two ways there. You should be buying something that appreciates over time. If you buy an ugly house, no curb appeal, maybe it's painted the wrong color, you should if you don't have the ability to envision it improved upon, then find somebody there should be somebody to help you with that. So it should appreciate. And sometimes that can quickly happen on a fixer-upper or just something that needs some TLC. And then, of course, paying down. When you make a payment, it doesn't feel like much early on, but you are paying down that mortgage. So you've got two ways of growing wealth over time. And then that's significant. And it could be something that's a stepping stone to buying something that has more value in the future. I think, personally, home ownership is important. I think real estate is important. And that doesn't mean go out there and start getting into rental homes and such as that way. It's like that's a whole nother monster, because now you got to be the maintenance guy, and you got to deal with the problems when the toilet doesn't work or the AC quits.
Right.
And that was something I'm like, nah, I don't want to do that. Because here's my thought, and I've shared this a long time ago, is if you're getting into that, you have to, in my opinion, figure out how do you get from one rental home to 10 as quick as possible. Because then what you have is a business, and you can pay people to solve some of those problems, where your first few homes, it's just you. Just kind of think about that, like, oh yeah, I'd like to get a rental home or have one. Well, who's dealing with the repairs? You? Right. You are. Otherwise, you are spending money.
Yeah.
Same like your individual home. You either fix it or you get somebody to fix it.
That's such a great point. And I think when folks, and we're getting these calls, and there are programs out there, but I think when you're looking at this, especially from an investment home standpoint, and I've learned this the hard way, right, what happens when not only a toilet doesn't flush, but what happens when that person, you own one property, and that person doesn't make the payment, right? The bank doesn't go, don't worry about it, Dwayne, Greg, y'all cool. We know you're good. You're a good dude, right? So that's what folks do not come in, it's an investment property, and there's risk. It's not, a 30-minute show on one of the, life channels or, a TikTok where you can learn about this. And it's got to be, what is the game plan for multiple properties? And some of the smartest investors that I deal with who do this, they have a factor in place. And if they put something together, hey, I buy it for this, I put down this, here's the repair. And if it doesn't fit into their equation, a dollar one way or the other, they move on. And that takes discipline, but that's how you build the empire, become that investor. So, and we get a lot of calls. Hey, I want to buy an investment property. Okay, great. And they have no money, right? Or they want to buy a double and live in one and use the other one. That's genius. We'll do those. That's brilliant, right? And then, hey, build that equity and then move into something else. And then you can rent out both sides. So it's knowing and being able to pivot, right, when something, like you said, it's much more than a toilet or AC or a plumbing leak. It's okay, they didn't make the payment, because life happens, right? So when you've got to make that payment, oh, and by the way, you still got to pay your own mortgage as well, that's where getting into that is a big deal. But these questions are starting to come about a little bit more because as rates fall, it opens up opportunity. Cash flow can become much better. It makes more sense when you can do an investment property and the rate's not 10, 11, 12% when it's a little bit more reasonable.
One of the questions that I hear about and holding people back from opportunities is their 3% mortgage that they have. Is like, oh, I
rate purgatory.
I can't let go of that.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you hear that, even though they'd like to get out that condo and get into a house, or they're in a smaller house, wanting a bigger house, or, you know, there can be other reasons where they're wanting, but they're kind of like locked in, like, oh, I can't let go of that 3%. What do you say to that?
Yeah, I mean, the locked-in effect is real. I call it rate purgatory, right? You're in this place maybe you don't want to be, but what lowering rates has done, it's helped people understand that, okay, maybe I've got 3%, but now I can get, depending on the program, in the mid-5s or low 6s, right? I have that option there, so maybe it makes a little bit more sense. But what the conversations I'm having, it's not necessarily all about rate. Now maybe when they bought that house at 3%, their company wasn't requiring them. They were allowed to work from home. Now they can't. So now they got to make an hour drive every day. Or maybe kids went off to school or got married, whatever it is, divorced. Now they don't need as much house. So that's where the conversations now are, oh, no way, I got 3%. I'd be stupid to do that. It's where are your needs at today versus when you got that 3% mortgage, right? And we're helping so many people keep that 3% mortgage. You talk about, hey, people wanting to buy an investment property. You come to me and get an investment property loan, you're not getting 3%. So we're able to show people, let's turn that property at 3% into a money-making mailbox, money-filling machine for you because your payment is so low, you could get so much more money, and we're helping show people how to buy another house and turn that house into an investment property. So those are the conversations that lower rates allow and us looking into and being able to take advantage of for folks.
Yeah, another thing to think about is where they're locked in on that, and they just can't just I got to pay 5.5%. I got to pay 6%. When's it coming back to 3? I'll wait for 3.
Yeah,
you may be waiting decades for that.
Yeah. Well, look, I don't. Let's hope. The reason we got to the 3s was because of the COVID, right? Let's hope we don't have that, right? What you call it, black swan event or something like that. Like, let's hope we don't see that again. And I think folks are now starting to get into that range, Gregory, and that's why I call it rate purgatory, no longer locked in effect. People are starting to get into a rate. It's a mental thing. And I think as we're able to, the difference of saying 6.05 versus 5.99 is just a mental hurdle. That's why from a refinance, it's easy. Somebody's listening to us right now, and I can already see the folks already going in, sending messages, call me, hey, I want to talk about a refinance. Not, hey, let's talk about how much home I could afford. Because people tend to go, well, is it going to get lower? Right? Is it going to get better? So that's where if this can stay consistent for 30 days, right as spring's happening, it's going to be a very, very busy spring home buying season. Very busy.
So phones are ringing, huh?
Oh, yeah. Look, refinances are up amazingly. And this is usually what happens. February, we start to see this because everybody overspent. Santa Claus is undefeated. So they get that first credit card statement in at the end of January and go, oh my gosh, what did I do for Christmas? Like, went over budget, right? All that. So that always happens. Well, now you're putting that together with the, oh my gosh, what did I do with, oh wait, and I could lower my rate? And I could save hundreds, if not thousands a month? Yeah, let's rock and roll. So that is what we're seeing right now. But I think the purchases are coming. The interest is there. It's just, it's twofold, right? Rates starting to go down, so they're like, well, will they go down a little bit more? What will they do? And because, you know, if it's 0.25% cheaper, can I afford more? But I think that's why right now I think what folks have to start understanding is with rates going down, especially on the purchase side, it's going to increase competition. And we know what that means. You know, we talked on your show last summer, Gregory, about all these delistings. We talked about that. Record number of delistings. Because those people in rate purgatory, those people like you talked about with 3%, Gregory, if they wasn't getting the price they wanted, they just took it off the market. Well, now you're starting to hear the media, oh, record inventory on the rise. All that is they just moved the supply from the back up to the front. They just rotated the product. So those folks are not going to all of a sudden go, wow, rates are 1% cheaper. Somebody can afford 30 to 40, 35 to 50,000 more in home. You know what? Yeah, let's lower my price.
You know, I've got a couple properties at different rates, but you know, like when I bought not long ago is kind of, yeah, I didn't get it at 4. I might be at 6 something. I don't recall, and it doesn't hold me back if I want the right property that long term. It makes me happy. It's going to increase in value. And once again, they're not growing new real estate. Real estate, you know, somebody owns it, and if you want it, you got to buy it. So it's kind of relative to what you're wanting to do and what period of time are you thinking about holding it and what it may go to. And that's one reason I just like, I think this 3% cut just holds people back where there's opportunity to shift to something better. We got a break coming up here shortly. And one of the things I wanted to get on the other side of the break is kind of talking about situational finance, where somebody's in a situation and they probably got to do a refinance, but they need a car, and they're kind of like, do I take it out of my 401k and such? And I want to talk about opportunity costs on money there when you're kind of looking at these situations for people. Just, it's not so different than trying to buy a home or move out of one home and into the next, and what's holding them back, or don't make mistakes. And I think home ownership is a great opportunity, but you need to go into it with eyes wide open and not make mistakes. Like, you know, you got to make sure the AC system works. That's like your biggest expense. All of a sudden you buy something, then got to replace that. That could be anywhere from $4K to $10K, right, or more on expense, or plumbing problems. But you get the right place, you know, you might not have any of those problems for a long time, and then you're just knocking down equity. So I'm just throwing some things out there, but I think home ownership is a great thing long term, and people should find a way to get there. What about in the retirement community from that side? We'll talk about that as well when we come back on the other side of the break. And there's the music. Hey, you've been listening to Winning at Life. If you've just joined us, I am your host, Gregory Ricks, CEO founder of Gregory Ricks Total Wealth. We're going to come back on the other side of the break, talk to Dwayne a little bit more. A lot of great ideas, a lot of concepts to help you with. We'll be right back.
Finally, mortgage rates have started to recede. This is Dwayne Stein of Mortgage Gumbo Dad Cam, where we stir together rates, real estate, and smart home financing moves. If you bought a home in the last 3 years, listen up. With receding rates, this may be a real opportunity to refinance. Lowering your rate could reduce your monthly payment, freeing up cash, or getting rid of some of that unwanted debt, or paying off your home faster. So don't wait for headlines to tell you what to do. Let's get ahead of it. Visit Mortgage Gumbo, Dad Can.
Hi, I'm Wes Blanchard. We all know Louisiana law is different, but that hasn't stopped national companies from pushing cookie-cutter wills and trusts that don't fit our state. At W.J. Blanchard Law, we're local and we're problem solvers. We don't sell fill-in-the-blank forms and hope for the best. We build custom plans that fit your life, your family, and Louisiana law. No templates, no guesswork, just local guidance that puts you first. Visit WJBlanchardLaw.com today to get started. What's your plan? Offices in Metairie and Mandeville. Filing number LA 251-9459.
Mosquitoes. We know them as flying, blood-sucking pests, but did you know that mosquitoes are actually highly intelligent? They can smell human breath, our sweat helps them choose their next meal, and they use our body heat to find just the right place to bite. Outsmart mosquitoes with help from Mosquito Joe. Mosquito Joe has this time-release capsule that they spray that slowly releases its mosquito death over a course of a month. NewOrleans.MosquitoJoe.com. NewOrleans.MosquitoJoe.com.
Winning at Life with Gregory Ricks is a copyright of Down South Strategies for the private use of our audience. Any unauthorized use of this broadcast without express consent is prohibited. For podcasts, show information, and contacts to our sponsors, go to winningatlife.com or download the Winning at Life app. If you have a financial situation and you're not quite sure what to do, you better call Gregory. We are Winning at Life with Gregory Riggs.
I never realized that I'd be taking care of a 2-year-old and a 9-year-old on my own. I think men can be a little stubborn sometimes where pride gets in the way and they may want the help. They may not know how to ask. With my traditions, with the family support in line, and just with my mind frame, I was able to turn a negative into a positive. I knew I needed more tools in my toolbox to take care of these little girls that had just lost their mother. It's time for me to be that father that I knew I could be. I think just being that good role model as well, that models good behavior in front of them, going to work every day, coming home and being able to put on that smile. The biggest reward about being a dad is sitting back and watching your kids be happy.
Never stop being a dad. That's dedication. Find out more at fatherhood.gov. Brought to you by the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services and the Ad Council.
This is a Fox News alert. I'm Angelo Bavaro. The U.S. and Israel launching strikes across Iran. The joint military operation expected to carry on for days.
When we talked to President Trump about this less than 24 hours ago, he was upfront about the risks of this conflict becoming a long-term war. And even though we don't have any reason today to think that American boots would be deployed on the ground in Iran, there are a lot of American servicemen and women in the region supporting this mission by air and by sea.
Fox's Peter Ducey. President Trump with this message.
They attempted to rebuild their nuclear program and to continue developing long-range missiles.
Iran retaliating by firing missiles and drones towards Israel and U.S. military bases in that region. America is listening to Fox News.
You're listening to Winning at Life with Gregory Ricks. I'm CEO, founder of Gregory Ricks Total Wealth, Financial Advisors and Money Management. If you're looking for some help, you can reach out to the office, 504-832-9200. Email info@gregoryricks.com as well, whether you want to have digital meeting, Zoom meeting, or in-office visits. We are in Metairie, Louisiana, Gulfport, Mississippi, and Mandeville, Louisiana. So it's real easy to get started, to just start with a conversation there. And I think it's important to have a sounding board there from a finance standpoint. Even if you say, well, do it yourself. Well, you just don't have the resources and access that we do in the industry. And it's like adding somebody to your team. Same sense on getting a mortgage, looking for some help or ideas. And I've got Dwayne Stein on with me here today, and we're kind of, this is our mortgage show for this half hour. And sometimes I'm having conversation with people that's not even in just some of day-to-day life. I'm having a conversation with someone, and then they've got a friend that's going through a situation, and maybe it's a divorce, maybe it's leaving a job, they're in a jam, they've got this property that they've got to refinance, but they're short of money, they need a car, but the only money they've got that money at the old job. You got these situations coming up, and one of the things I always talk about, when you think of something, you should reach out. And Dwayne, I run into these different stories, and you do as well. And there was somebody I recommended talk to you, and this happens often, but you're kind of that guy that you need to run this by Dwayne Stein. You need to have a conversation. Before you do anything, you need to talk to Dwayne. And if you're thinking about that, or doing a loan or a refinance, or I need money for this, and that's where I said, like, you need to talk to somebody about this, and maybe more than one person. And I'll go back to it from a standpoint of retirement. If you're thinking of retiring, and all of a sudden you start thinking, is that, am I doing it in 5 years or 3? All of a sudden your mind just starts zeroing in on a point, kind of like, yeah, I should, maybe I could retire in 3 years. Or if you've reached a point, all of a sudden, I'd kind of like to now. That was your first thought. Well, you need to reach out and have a conversation with us. What's the preference? 5 years ahead. There's work to be done. But what's problematic is, I retired last year. I'm kind of jammed up. I need to talk. That's like when you're thinking of selling a business, when people will call say, I've got a contract on selling my business. I need some help. No, you should have called us when you started thinking about, I might like to sell this thing. Yeah. It's the same with you when you start thinking, when should you reach right? Well, I'm thinking of buying a house, or, can I refinance? It's kind of when you have those thoughts, that's when you should reach out. Your thought.
Yeah, and really, what a statement and a great thought process on your behalf. And I've already seen this twice. So for those listening, what happens right now is, what's everybody wanting to get their money back? Taxes, right? We're hearing about all this. Taxes. Get me my money back. I want to get my money back. Well, especially us here in the Gulf South. A lot of us do odds and ends jobs. A lot of we don't have Fortune 500 companies, so a lot of us pick up money or self-employed. I see more taxes than it should be allowed, right? So what I'm seeing, and this is where, again, Gregory, like you just said, have a conversation before, not after. And folks are filing their taxes. I have a client. He's got two different clients. One, getting a divorce. Husband wants out. I've got one that got with me. We reviewed the taxes, and I said, here's how they need to be filed, and you're good to go. And guess what? Now she's able to keep the house. We're going to be able to keep the kids in the house, and everything's good. Got another client where they went and filed taxes. They're self-employed, wants to buy out the wife, and now can't because the taxes. They called me after the fact, and I said, hey, send me your 24 taxes, not 25. Well, 25's been filed. Now what? Right? We can't put it back in the bag. Right? Now, do you want to go amend them? Well, you thought you were getting $5,000. Now you would have to pay 10 for us to make this loan work. So that is so important that if you think something may be coming up, then especially this time of year, because everybody wants that money back, and I understand it. But if you have any kind of income that's outside of W-2, and there's any kind of business that you've been owning for at least 2 years, then you think you might be buying a house. It's better. Let's have a conversation prior to so we can look at it. And I literally tell folks, tell your CPA it needs to be on this line, and this line. And boom. And they're like, oh, my gosh, these other lenders just told me I didn't qualify. I didn't this, I didn't that. Well, that's the difference, right? Everybody's different. You used to say this. If you go to a restaurant, you could – a lot of times when people go to a restaurant, they want the same waiter that they had an amazing service with, because you can go to that same restaurant and have a different waiter and have two different experiences. So it's understanding and looking in. So you nailed it. It's if you don't know, ask. Ask somebody that does this and that could get you the answers you want. And it's got to be – and that's where that trust comes in, reputation comes in. And knowing how to say yes when other people are saying no, and still making sure we meet your needs.
Yeah, those situations where that comes up, and a lot of this does happen in divorces where having to split the property, do a refinance, and then maybe they're needing to pick up another car. There was a scenario a while back. I was being asked questions about, and one of them was, you really need to go talk to Dwayne, because if you're having to separate this out, there's a bunch of equity in the home. There's ways of getting done to where you can keep the home, don't have to disrupt the family. The wife and kids, or the ex-wife and kids, can stay in the home. And then there's another complication that is out there. There's splitting up the retirement plan and such. And these situations are not uncommon. They're not one-off. Maybe what these people are going through, to them, it's kind of like the world's blown up and it's a one-off situation. But for
That's
us,
right. It's the only situation that matters. Correct. Yeah.
Even though we see this often over time, and then they're kind of thinking, what do I do? Well, you need to go ahead and have the conversation with Dwayne in advance of, before trying to settle, or even if you're going through a divorce, don't get into settlement talks without having some discussion in advance to how can you create a roadmap that this works well. And then also they're thinking, well, I've got these retirement dollars. I'm getting part of that. Maybe I can use some of that money. Once again, if those thoughts run through your head, we need to talk before you do anything, because I'll tell you, the most expensive car loan in your life would be cashing 401k money out to buy a car, because it's probably you're under 59 and a half. It's going to be penalized. It's going to be taxed. That's huge. That's very expensive. You're talking about, it's taxable plus penalty. So just think, if you would have to cash 100K to end up with perhaps 50K. That is ugly money. You've set yourself back so far you can't get there, where, hey, Dwayne could have helped you on a refinance and yanked some money out, and which I'm hearing now, he'd get it in ballpark of 6%.
Yeah.
Not holding you to that number, but
No,
we're
I know
just
that,
ballparking it
Yeah.
there.
Yep.
That 6% money is a lot cheaper than 40% cost to get to that money. And that's one reason I go back to the sounding board thing, where people need to have conversations, because you're used to figuring it out and helping people work through, because this is what you do, versus their one-off situation that they see. And it's and I was telling a person the other day, is you need to tell them to call me. When that thought comes up, we need to have a conversation. Don't go get in the middle of something and make a decision or not properly move money. And especially like in divorces, resetting retirement plans or federal pensions or any of that. That is complicated. And to move that from the ex's retirement account to yours, and can be done, but it has to be done correctly. And we're experienced in that and know how to do that, so you don't end up later with a tax bill or pull the money out and end up with a tax penalties and bills there that compounds your problem to a situation that you might not could even fix with the refi on that other situation, where you were talking about the tax return and stuff. Is like, oh my gosh, that they don't know how ugly that can get.
Yeah. And you know, what we want to make sure too, Gregory, to continue on with this is, do we meet your needs today without sacrificing your future goals? Right. So, you know, that's the conversations we want to have. We're not painting everybody in the same box. And this, again, comes with experience, understanding what options are. Had a client come to me within the last couple months who was working with another lender and got upset, and finally got with a realtor that I use and said, like you said, you need to talk to Dwayne, you know, because I've worked with him on some different things. And this other lender was like, yeah, just go take it out of your 401k, because that lender was worried about them, not looking at what other options would be. And we were able to, because of their situation, they wanted to use their 401k, but the other lender didn't take the time to go, hey, let's look at your 401k. Let's call the administrator of that, and let's find out, hey, do you have a hardship option? And they're like, well, I'm not hard up. I'm like, no. It's not like hardship like woe is me, but they were going to be a first-time home buyer. So they were able to use these funds without having to get penalized or take out a loan against their money. You know, last thing you want to do is take out borrow money to go borrow money. And so we were able to show them how to take advantage of that. Because, hey, if you're going to use it, we could sit here all day and go the positives plus the negatives. But if it's a situation where, like you're saying, I got to get out, I got to protect my family, and here's what I have, right, that I can make this move. Well, I was able to show them how to do this without getting penalized, whereas the other lender was like, oh, yeah, well, it was going to cost them over 40% because of their hits, because of their age. Like, that's not cool. When doing the same exact things but just asking different questions, I was able to save them 40% of their money by not getting penalized. So naturally didn't need as much money, right? Because you didn't have to take into account the penalties and all that. So it wound up working much better by doing it as a hardship. Then there was no penalty. There was nothing, because we were able to, this 401k, it was allowed us to be able to use a hardship program for a first-time home buyer.
You know, it's also making me think of a situation where somebody's needing money or they're wanting to buy a car. And I remember we had this story quite a while back, shared it somewhere past on one of the shows, but this guy borrowed money from his 401k to buy a car. And it was, you know, on paper, it looked like a really good deal. And so he did. So he borrowed against his 401k, and then he gets terminated from that. And then they call the loan, and how do they pay off the loan? With his 401k money that then became a taxable event. So what he thought was, oh my gosh, this is the best value ever for buying a car. And because of that life event termination, became one of the most expensive car loans in history because it's a taxable event, just a different way from this other story we mentioned, to where maybe you would have helped them with a line of credit or a refi to help that if they didn't have other means of doing so. I just think there's other ways, and people got to be careful with those decisions that they make.
Yeah, and when I'm having conversations with new clients, right? Existing clients get it. They understand when they're coming back to a refi, you've earned it. When I'm having conversations with new clients, it's what are your goals? What are we looking at? But it's making sure that I'm providing options, right? Now, at the end of the day, what you can get versus what you like might not be in the cards. I mean, I want to be 6'5" and play tight end for the Saints. It just didn't work out, right? So we don't.
How fast would you be too? Do you have a speed? Would you like a 4.2 40 or something?
No, I'm what they call a mutter. Just give me the ball on the 1 yard line, and I'll get in. I'm not going to outrun anybody for sure.
Okay.
But understanding, and having that conversation, there's always a way. Now, what I do is go, does this make sense? It's my job to provide those options. Now, if you ask me, I'm going to go, listen, okay, but what if we do this? Had a conversation with a sharp gentleman this week, explained, hey, rates are in a place where maybe you want to consider some monthly savings. Now, is it where you want it to be? No. Are you right now telling me, because I've got people telling me, hey, I'm barely keeping the lights on. So saving somebody $75 a month doesn't sound like a lot to that person. I'm saving $500, but that's $75. Everybody's different. So here's what some options are, and then it's for you to decide and make sure, does it make sense for you? Because there's going to be a way. And then, look, sometimes it's, unfortunately, I get your situation. Had a older lady, and we were chatting about a type of loan, and I explained to her why it didn't work, and she's like, well, what am I to do? I said, not many people are in your situation sitting on $140,000 in equity. I talk to a lot of people that don't. So, unfortunately, maybe right now, selling the house is the only option, right? Because you don't like what I'm providing on this side, so maybe that is something to look at, right? So that's where, like you said, my job is to provide options. I'll help lead you to the water. It's up to you to figure out how much and where you want to drink and stuff like that.
Yeah, I always have this thought, and I shared this recently, is the interest rate is relative to the home and what you're wanting to do and where do you see that going. And I go back into the 3% is just don't get locked into that. That was a past world opportunity. Great that you got that, but you also have to reset to what's going forward. And that could also be somebody that's wanting to relocate in retirement. Well, they're going to sell that 3% property if that's where they refinance that, and they're going to be into another pricing opportunity, but it's relative to what they're trying to do. It's like, well, I'm really wanting to move, but I can't let go of this. What then? Maybe you don't really want to move.
That's true.
But is your life going to be better there?
Right.
Or near the kids, or
in a school district, the babysitters, or you where at the time it made sense, but what has changed, right? Did mother-in-law, did mom, dad move, or do I need to be closer to them because that's the school? When I bought the 3%, this was great. Now I have children that are, going into, I get this all the time. Well, I don't like the school district we're in now. Okay, well, what do we want to do? Man, I don't want to give up this 3%. Okay, so we're at a crossroads here. right? We got to make a decision. Do we
Yeah.
want 6% and take care of and be in the school district you want, or are we going to hold on to this?
Yeah.
It's 3%. You know, so it's but here's the good thing, Gregory, I could tell you is we're now finally in a place where these conversations make sense. Right? When you got 3 and the rate's 7.5, you know, they don't even respond to my Christmas cards. Right? You know, they don't want to hear from me. Right?
Like
but
who's
now,
that?
Yeah, like, dude, I don't need you no more. I used you. I was a bank robber without a gun. That's what I tell people when they call. I'm like, oh, it's the bank robber, man. Good to hear from you, you know. So you came and took money and without a gun, so which is awesome. But so now those conversations are there. You know, now when I could save you a couple $100 a month, now, I mean, and Gregory, I've been doing this a long time. I'm now able to have conversations that I love. I'm able to go, hey, listen, now we could take that 30-year mortgage, and if you do biweekly and then or add $50 to it, I could show them how I showed a young lady this week how your 30-year, you've been in it 1 year. If you just keep doing this with it, you pay off in 17 years. So you don't need a 15-year note. But if you just do this, look, and I showed her how I was going to cut off like $74,000 in interest by doing that. So that's what's exciting as rates fall. It just opens up opportunities. But it circles back to, do you have somebody that you could talk to weigh out those options? And more importantly, to explain them. Don't just assume that everybody's the same person. I'm going to offer that white glove service where we're going to find out what are your needs, what are your future goals, so we can line them up for you.
And I'll just say for the listeners that if you can't help them, you'll help them find the correct help. You know, I
Absolutely.
spoke to you a couple years ago about like, hey, I'm interested in buying some land and such. And if I come across something, can you help me, or who could help me? And you directed me over to Pat Huber over at firstsouthfarmcredit.com. And I bought some land with some trees on it. And that wasn't something you could handle, but you helped me in that direction. And I've done some business with you, and you've also helped me go elsewhere to pull off a deal. And that's what's great about you. How do they reach you, Dwayne?
We'll always do what's right for the client, for sure. It's very simple. Just go to mortgagegumbo.com.
Thanks for being on the show. And, you know, if you've got a discussion, thinking about doing something, use Dwayne Stein as a sounding board. Appreciate you, Dwayne. Have a blessed weekend.
You too. Have a good one.
Thank you for listening to Winning at Life today. Reach out to us at GregoryRicks.com. The phone number is 504-832-9200.
If you've got a financial situation and you're not quite sure what to do, you better call Gregory.
I started my retirement about 5 years ago, and I truly am late in life.
Would I be better to just withdraw the money out of my TSP and pay that mortgage off?
My problem is I have champagne tasting a beer salary. What is a balloon note?
Is that cutting it too close?
So will I still be eligible for Medicare?
Is there anything better I can do with the money I transferred into the Roth from my 401k? My goal is to retire at age 60. I'm 54 right now.
Hey, I have a 9-year-old son, and he's got probably $2,500 in. Is there anything we can invest it in?
And I just started a 401k a little late in life.
Then that should be like 10%.
Now, how far in advance do you recommend that someone goes to visit the Social Security office?
I want some money in a casino playing poker.
Gregory Ricks and Associates, 504-832-9200 or GregoryRicks.com.
Investment advisory services offered through AE Wealth Management, LLC.
While serving in Vietnam, a grenade took my ability to see. Today, I'm a sculptor. Now, my fingers are my eyes. I'm Michael Naranjo. As a veteran, I know the challenges of life can be great. In my art, turning a lump of clay into something beautiful, that is worth doing. Life is like that. We each must use what we can to make things better.
DAV helps veterans like Michael get the benefits they've earned. They help more than 1 million veterans every year in life-changing ways.
Now, I show others how they can create something with their own hands. I know it can do a lot of good. With support from DAV, more veterans can shape their lives into a thing of beauty. My victory is bringing beauty into the world.
Michael Naranjo, may your victories inspire many more. Support more victories for veterans. Go to DAV.org.
News Talk 99.5 WRNO-FM, New Orleans, comes from the Mortgage Gumbo Studios.
Your locally trusted home loan lender, MortgageGumbo.com.
This is a Fox News alert. Iran attacked. I'm Paul Stevens, Fox News. Yes, attacks are underway. Sirens sounding across cities in Israel as Iran now retaliates against a joint U.S.-Israeli attack. President Trump confirming the military action on Truth Social overnight.
Our objective is to defend the American people by eliminating imminent threats from the Iranian regime, a vicious group of very hard, terrible people.
The president reiterating his commitment to preventing Iran from getting a nuclear weapon.
It has always been the policy of the United States, in particular, my administration, that this terrorist regime can never have a nuclear weapon.
Very latest now with Fox's Jennifer Griffin.
This morning, an alert went out to Israelis to head to bomb shelters, and air raid sirens sounded across the country. This was an advance alert for the Israeli people. Throughout the morning, dozens of missiles have soared through the skies of this country. We understand the majority of them have been shot down by Israeli air defense systems. There is some shrapnel damage and light injuries, but nothing significant so far, like during the 12-day war last summer. There's a few things the Israelis are looking at here, whether or not they're able to be successful in preempting some of these launches. And so far, the IDF has released new video showing a few of their strikes against Iranian ballistic missile launching positions in the western part of Iran.
And correction there, that was Fox's Trey Yingst in Tel Aviv. Iran, Israel, and Iraq announcing the closure of their airspaces following the attack, which was carried out by both land and sea forces. The Israeli military saying missiles have been launched from Iran toward Israel. Israel's defense minister has issued a state of emergency. America's listening to Fox News.
Welcome to Winning at Life. I'm your host, Gregory Ricks. Yeah, in my day job, I'm CEO, founder, financial advisor over at Gregory Ricks Total Wealth. I had a couple come up to me the other day when I was at lunch with Stacy, my wife, and my favorite person, best friend in life. And we kind of do lunch as a thing where some folks may be dinner or something, but because of my work schedule and used to do the daily wrap in the evenings, about midway through this 16 years of doing Winning at Life on Saturdays, I was doing a daily wrap show on the market and financial commentary every evening. And I just was always kind of like on a clock, having to be ready to do that show. So what we shifted years ago to was having lunch every day, kind of as our most important meal of the day. And meaning we always had time together, and I set that as a priority over the evening time. And of course now, you know, it's been a few years since I've done the daily wrap show, and we're of course always together in the evening. I don't have that clock on me, but we still, one of the most important things we do is we have lunch together. It's not 100% of the time, but it's more than 90% of the time, because it is a focus and we account for it, and it is something we discuss and plan. And then we have this rotation of restaurants that we go to and such to have lunch. And and eating correctly is very important to us. But we were at a restaurant recently having lunch, and it's one in the rotation, and we probably go there about once a week. And then a couple came up and said, "Are you Gregory?" And she said, "I thought so, because I've seen you on TV, because there's a few TV shows I'm on and stuff now, and commercials and so forth." But what they shared is they had relocated here. They lived over in Florida, and I spoke with them for a few minutes, and because they said, "I hope it not bother me." I said, "Oh, absolutely not at all." And they were looking for a change because they were working with somebody, and now it's kind of long distance. And she said, "It was okay, but I just feel I'm missing something." And probably what is that is that sit down time, and having that conversation, having somebody close by is a sounding board. And I think in-person meetings are really important. Younger people don't value that as much as, say, older generation. But I think in person is so important because it is that visuals that see. If you're used to talking to people, there's indicators you pick up, a vibe. And I think all that's important, but it's also the convenience of having somebody you can sit down with and talk to. And about your money is a giant topic. And then especially if you're in retirement and having that connection of who you're working with. And she said, "Yeah, we would like to have an opportunity to sit down with you." And I said, "Well, we have a sizable team. I have 7 licensed people on staff, a total team of 23 plus, and we are in the business of helping people with their money and taking care of them. And we have a team effect that you would be connected to an advisor, an analyst, a surface person, a relationship person that are there to look and you will get to know these people. These people are going to know you as well, and that where there's always somebody there connected to you. And I think that's a great situation where even if I'm out and about, people will speak to me and such. But and then we've got this huge audience on the radio show that maybe they've connected or seen me on TV and then connect the voice. "Oh, that's the guy on the radio show." And even if you're long distance, and we work with families across the country, and one of the things that's really helped with that as well is the ability, the technology where we can do Zoom meetings. But I do put a high value on being able to come into the office, where we've got the office in Gulfport, Mississippi, to help the South Mississippi community. And you can set up a meeting to come into the office there and speak with the team. We've got the Metairie, Louisiana office as well. That's a bit larger complex as well for you to come into. And then we've got the office in Mandeville, Louisiana, that you can set up too. So we have people drive in from various areas, just like Gulfport gets a lot of people come over from Mobile. So some people are wanting to go a bit of a distance as well to do that, but adding that convenience that you've got that in-office setting. And offices are set up kind of like breakfast nooks, so to speak, that you're sitting in a table, some chairs around it, like at a breakfast table, and very comfortable. We have 60, 70-inch screen TVs. If we've got to show you stuff on it, we're not flipping around a laptop. We're putting it up on a screen that makes it easy for you to see. We're not set. We do have laptops in meetings, but those laptops are not setting between you and I. They're off to the side, because the focus is listening to you, not looking at the laptop or typing in. And I think little details like that are really important. And we look at it as a family office, that we're taking care of you and your family and extended family, and could well be your friends also as well. So that's one thing I think is important. And if you're accumulating wealth, and let's redefine that, you're accumulating savings for retirement. And I'll define that is probably going to evolve into wealth, meaning you've got assets that you probably won't spend all of it in retirement, so you're going to leave it behind. If you're getting great help, I think your family should get great help. And that might be your children are introduced to us, your relatives, your extended family, your friends. Why, if you're getting great help, why would you keep that a secret? Because you do want them to have success. And that's the way we look at it from our end. If we're helping you, we should be helping your family and making sure your kids are making great decisions and that they evolve and over their life and making great decisions. It even goes maybe to not just your children, your grandkids, and or those babies just born. I know we can't work with the babies, but somebody should be setting them up a Trump account. It's an unbelievable opportunity. You know, could you imagine having, when you were born, next thing you know, there's a few $1,000s into an account and money, and like 1,000 or so's added to it every year thereafter. By the time you're 18, you've got a pile of money that you could use to go to college, start a business, buy a home, or just leave. Hey, this is the basis for my retirement. I'm not going to have to work to 60 because this money, I'm going to keep adding to it, and it's going to be a big old pile, and I've got a lot of options. I might want to work till I'm 80, but I could also stop when I'm 50. Why? We need people to make good decisions, not get to age 18, have access to that money. I'm not going to school, but I sure want one of those Ferraris. Now we've missed something there if that's the decision making there, or they're just going to be abusive. So what we want to do is get them fascinated with compounding returns. You know, at 7.2%, your money will double every 10 years. We get that conceptually going across, that somewhere in that range of return, we're growing money. And if they're starting with a Trump account at before a year old, knowing that what could that be over the next 40, 50, 60 years with money starting being put away, and they start becoming educated on that. And that's a change to where if we're working with your family, we would like to work with the kids and help them. We'll do review meetings with them every year and get them connected to where they start understanding what's going on, what their opportunities are, and how can you parlay this into. So these concepts are life-changing, just like that Trump account, I believe, is a life-changing opportunity. And that's one reason, you know, I started the story, the lady walking up to me. But what that starts is a connection with them, then to their family, their friends. And I'm pretty sure I didn't ask them, but I'm pretty sure, why did they relocate here from Florida? I'd bet $1 they have family here in the community as well. And they were successful. They have money. Well, they could up and move across the country while in retirement. So, and they want to do good with their money, and they want those that they leave it behind to do good. And I think these are all the type of discussions we should be having with people, and that's what we talk to our advisors about. Because when you sit down with us for that first visit, it is a get to know you. It's kind of a sounding board both ways, because we want to get to know you and find out what's going on, what are your concerns, where are you wanting to get to, and we'll share with you our core philosophies and our vision and some of the things that we might find out could be problem areas that you might not be aware of. And then we're going to do some research, analysis, prepare a plan, maybe run analysis on your portfolio, tax strategies, Social Security planning, and some of these things. I could, it's kind of like sitting down with a doctor and what tests are they going to run for you to when you come back in and see. That's kind of, in a sense, what we're wanting to do for you is prepare some stuff to go over with you when you come back in for that second visit. And if you like some of that, then you probably come in for a third visit and a fourth. If you keep meeting with us, it's pretty easy. We've obviously started working together on some stuff for you. And to me, that's kind of how it goes. If you don't want to come back in, you don't have to. If you don't come back in, well, obviously we aren't working together at this time. But what that also provides you is maybe some information for the future, because one thing I know is we keep in touch with you. And I think that leaves communication open, because sometimes maybe the timing's not right. Somebody might dial us up, or we communicate with them. Yeah, I need to come back in. I've got some other stuff I want to talk about. I've been thinking about it. Maybe it's time we get started. So sometimes people will come back in a year later and we get started. Sometimes it's 2 or 3 or more. And a life event happens and it creates a situation. Yeah, I'm needing some help now. And that's what you don't know, but that's one reason they can make that decision, because they started thinking about something. It's like, gosh, you know what I say is like, when you start thinking about maybe retirement, potentially, you should probably talk to us. If you're thinking of selling that business, all of a sudden it occurs that, I'm thinking of, what would it like to be to sell out at such and such time? Well, then you probably should have a conversation with us. We should start having that exploratory conversation. We should start having that talk about retirement. Or you've left the job and gone to another. Maybe, what are you doing with that money? Is it still at the old job? Maybe we should have a conversation about moving that money. Can we improve upon it? See, all those little things that and that's what we're there for also, is that sounding board, or how to invest more effectively. It could be, and there's a number of widows that we're working with. And this is a yearly deal where widows come to us. And sometimes we've had meetings with them, but their spouse is running things, managing the money and doing that. And next thing I know, Jim died. He's a great guy, very smart, and he wanted to do it himself. But Liz is not going. I'm throwing out hypothetical names just so you know. Liz is just a name I pulled out of thin air, not correlated to any person. But Liz, so if that's a coincidence, and I don't think it is, just Liz, and it could be Mary or Sue or Jane, or it could be Bill or Tom. But all of a sudden they're like, what do I do? I don't know anything about investing. I'm not quite sure where everything is. And life has been good, but now Fred's no longer around. He's not doing it. So Jane's now got to go and this is a regular occurrence. And so one of the things, you could be a do-it-yourselfer, but what is your spouse going to do? One of the things I would be well, who is she going to choose? How is she making that decision? And that might be somewhere, even though you might feel you've got to control and do it yourself, you still should hunt for somebody to have as, the backup. Who's the backup quarterback on your retirement plan? And that would help your spouse. And this could be where the wife is managing the money and handling that, and the husband just does his thing. And so that's where you need to have those conversations. And when you start thinking, if I've prodded you, I think that's a good thing, that maybe, we should have a conversation, because you need to find out who you're comfortable with and such. If you're not a fit, that's okay. So hopefully I've given you some ideas here on why you should work with somebody. And if you're new to the show, we've been doing this show for, I've kind of lost count now. It's 16 years or so I've been doing it, and been in the financial services business my adult life. And so I've done this for a long time, and a lot of experience in dealing with people. And that's why we have a great team that I lead of advisors. And just to tell you how we work as a firm, we do client meetings Monday through Thursday. On Fridays is a team training. We do case prep. We do case reviews, talk about planning ideas and new things that we're working on as well. So maybe I said it's a catch-up day as well. And then one Friday a month, we pull the entire firm's team together for training and working on things and doing planning for the firm. So we don't do client meetings on Friday. So we kind of have that as a training and prep day as well. And typically we're kind of regimented on our appointment times, but typically each advisor has 5 opportunities a day for appointments. It's not random or scattered, and we hold to a schedule. So you're not going to come in, you're not going to be the advisor's only appointment, I assure you. And we hold to a schedule, and when you go in there, you're not going to end up there for 3 or 4 hours talking to them. Typically, we envision an appointment lasting an hour. It could last a little longer. It could last a little bit less time. But as well, you can leave any time you want. But I kind of have a hard rule that the max the meeting can last, the max is kind of an hour and 15 minutes is kind of the max time. Because here's one of the things. You've absorbed a lot in that meeting, and you're probably like on overload at 50 minutes in. And if we've gone an hour, we should be thinking about scheduling the next visit so you could absorb that. We've got some stuff to work on for you, and we'll circle back and sit down and continue that meeting. So I don't, one of the things people have this fear of, I think, is setting up a visit. Like, oh my gosh, they're probably going to pressure me. I don't want to have to be making a big decision. They're going to try to close me on that visit, meaning get you as a customer, using that term close. Think of like you go into a car dealership. They're trying to get you to buy before you leave that lot. We don't think that way. We think of working with you, helping you, and that should lead to another visit. Then that visit should lead to another visit. If we keep meeting, we are working together. And we do have a process where a first visit is an introductory visit. We go over things we've worked out for you in the second visit. If we've met for a third visit, we're probably talking about how we're going to allocate and arrange assets, and we start implementation on a third visit. On a fourth visit, we're reviewing what all we've put in place. There's a binder delivery, and then we start talking about what is our advanced planning. And then the meetings that you have after the fourth visit is the things we're working on from advanced planning, maybe estate planning, tax strategies, and such that could come into that. And it might be some strategies dealing with large stock holdings that you may have, and as well that you might not be aware of some things that we could do there and create efficiency. It's not uncommon to have somebody holding millions in Amazon stock or NVIDIA or Apple. You know, it's like all of a sudden somebody worked at a job for a long time, and next thing you know, they really hadn't paid attention. And next thing you know, it's like, oh my gosh, that account's worth $6 million. What do I do? Well, you probably need some help. You probably need some efficiencies, but you also maybe need to, how can I make sure this doesn't go away? Because, you know, stocks can go down. Companies can go away. So what we want to do is also help you keep that value, and it also might be diversifying. But knowing that there's a process to the visits, and, you know, you might do a first visit, and you might not want that second visit doesn't happen until a year later. Well, we kind of start over with that first visit again and kind of reset that and move through that process. And you can go to GregoryRicks.com, and there's a layout of our process there as well on the website. So if some of these things that you have heard that you might like or helps, kind of like, yeah, that sounds like it's pretty easy going, pretty laid back, and it should be. And you're going to get to meet some of the team that's going to interact with you. You'll meet some of the service people, and you'll meet an analyst. You'll meet with an advisor, and so you'll get a good vibe. And you come to our offices. Here's one of the things, and if you're working with somebody and they're coming to your house, I'm like, oh my gosh, that's weird. Why? Because you really don't know their work environment. You just see them coming to your home. Doesn't matter what car they drive. But you haven't seen their office. Does it look like they're successful? Do they have a staff? Do they look like they're going to be in business for a while? And I'll define that to a restaurant. I remember years ago, a few of the team members and I went to lunch, and they suggested this place. And I'm like, oh my gosh, we're the only ones here at lunchtime. Oh, there's another couple in the restaurant. I said, I'm a little worried about lunch. And then I kind of thought to myself later, yeah, I won't be coming back here. Why? They just don't look, I don't get this successful vibe, and I want to dine someplace where it's successful. Now, I don't want to wait in line for 30 minutes to eat. I'm not going to do that. But I also, on the other hand, if it's at lunchtime or dinner, I don't think I should be the only one in the restaurant. And if I'm working with a financial advisor, an advisory firm, I want to pick up the vibe that they have a process, they're organized, their people are good, and they appear to be successful, and they've been here a while, and they're going to be here a long time. And that's what you want to get about. And then you also think, if something happens to this advisor I'm working with, could quit, could retire, could die, could get fired, whatever it might be. Do they have somebody else here that helped me? Is their whole team competent there? Think about that. And if you do, reach out to us. Our office number is 504-832-9200. The website is GregoryRicks.com. email us, info@gregoryricks.com. We're going to take a short break. Be right back.
Finally, mortgage rates have started to recede. This is Dwayne Stein of Mortgage Gumbo Dad Cam, where we stir together rates, real estate, and smart home financing moves. If you bought a home in the last 3 years, listen up. With receding rates, this may be a real opportunity to refinance. Lowering your rate could reduce your monthly payment, freeing up cash, or getting rid of some of that unwanted debt, or paying off your home faster. So don't wait for headlines to tell you what to do. Let's get ahead of it. Visit MortgageGumbo.com.
Hi, I'm Wes Blanchard. We all know Louisiana law is different, but that hasn't stopped national companies from pushing cookie-cutter wills and trusts that don't fit our state. At WJ Blanchard Law, we're local and we're problem solvers. We don't sell fill-in-the-blank forms and hope for the best. We build custom plans that fit your life, your family, and Louisiana law. No templates, no guesswork. Just local guidance that puts you first. Visit WJBlanchardLaw.com today to get started. What's your plan? Offices in Metairie and Mandeville. Filing number LA 2519459.
Mosquitoes. We know them as flying, blood-sucking pests, but did you know that mosquitoes are actually highly intelligent? They can smell human breath, our sweat helps them choose their next meal, and they use our body heat to find just the right place to bite. Outsmart mosquitoes with help from Mosquito Joe. Mosquito Joe has this time-release capsule that they spray that slowly releases its mosquito death over a course of a month. New Orleans.mosquitojoe.com. New Orleans.mosquitojoe.com.
Winning at Life with Gregory Ricks is a copyright of Down South Strategies for the private use of our audience. Any unauthorized use of this broadcast without express consent is prohibited. For podcasts, show information, and contacts to our sponsors, go to winningatlife.com or download the Winning at Life app. If you have a financial situation and you're not quite sure what to do, you better call Gregory. We are Winning at Life with Gregory Ricks.
We ask parents who adopted teens to share their journey.
Nathan has taught me to embrace the moment. Age-wise, I'm in my late 60s. I'm old enough to be his grandfather. Will he be embarrassed to acknowledge me as his dad? I think the most important thing we can do is let them know that they're safe, that they're valued and cared for and loved, and that they're important.
I knew I wanted to be adopted by him because of how he taught me to be the person who I am today. And it's coming from a dad that didn't expect to become a dad, and I feel very proud to be his son.
That was what he needed, and he was what I needed. Every day is full of opportunities. That's what it's been about, realizing the simple things that it takes to make such a huge difference in these kids' lives.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care at adoptuskids.org. Brought to you by Adopt US Kids, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and the Ad Council.
This is a Fox News alert. I'm Paul Stevens. The U.S. and Israel launching attacks on Iran and its capital, Tehran.
The strikes began shortly after 1 a.m. Eastern. This is a rare joint U.S.-Israeli operation synchronized and planned over a matter of months, I'm told. A senior U.S. military official tells me this operation will last not hours, but days. Among the initial targets, the Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei's compound.
Fox's Jennifer Griffin. Already growing reaction from some members of Congress. Pennsylvania Democratic Senator John Fetterman on Fox and Friends Weekend.
Iran massacred 30,000 of their own people right now. This war is not about the Iranian people. It's about this poisonous regime. And that's why I'm proud to stand with our military. I'm proud to stand with Israel, too.
A War Powers Resolution vote is set for the House in the coming week. America's listening to Fox News.
Welcome back. This is Winning at Life with Gregory Ricks, your Saturday morning financial show. If you're new to the show, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for joining us today. Hopefully, we bring value to your life, help you with your money. Maybe the show's your sounding board, or you need somebody to bounce ideas off of. And we've got a great team of people to help you. One of the things to do is go to the website, GregoryRicks.com, and there's a lot of information there. We'll go click on menus. So you could check out our team, strategic partners. We go over financial services. We have events. And one of the things I'm excited about, and I'm going to click on attend an event. We do educational events, and we have these. And one of the things I've had lots of questions about is like, when are you going to do those over in Gulfport? When are you going to do that on the North Shore, meaning Mandeville, Covington, such as that, Abita Springs, and so forth? We're doing those now. To answer that question so we have some upcoming events in the Gulfport area. There's an event place over in Biloxi that we've got an event scheduled upcoming. We've got one scheduled from Mandeville in a few weeks, and so you could go check out. Let me click on the website. Well, I say that now. I can't get it to work. Okay, there we go. So, on March 12th, there's a Social Security benefit options event on March 12th in St. Tammany Parish at the Mandeville Library, and you can register on the website. On March 24th, there is at the Hospitality Management Resort Center. Chris, one of the things we should mention to them, it should say where. Here's my question. Where the heck is that? It doesn't say what town or anything there, but I can tell you, I know where it's at. It's in Biloxi, but it's not saying there. So March 24th, you go to the website. That is in Biloxi. So it doesn't say it on the page, but we need to fix that come Monday. So we've got an event on March 12th, once again, St. Tammany Parish. It's in the Mandeville. It'll be at the Mandeville Library. You do need to register. That would be preferential to make sure you have a seat. And the one in the Gulfport is the March 24th event. It doesn't say that. It just says the location. But just listen, March 24th, we're on the Gulf Coast of Mississippi. And I believe it doesn't show up here. Let me just check, see on my menu if we've got the one scheduled for Metairie. I know I've discussed the topic and stuff, and the one that's upcoming in Metairie is going to be regarding investing in tax strategies, is kind of that focus for that one that's coming up. Let's see. I'll click on this button on the website and see what it shows there. It doesn't have that one listed, so we'll get that fixed on Monday as well. So once again, reach out to the office if you're looking to those. If you want information on upcoming events, send an email, info@GregoryRicks.com. Call the office, 504-832-9200. I'm glad I looked at it. There was a few things kind of shorted there, and that's not efficient at all. So we will fix that so we can get the event. But pretty much, and it doesn't mean to not sign up and come, but I'm pretty sure our objective this year is in those three areas, the Gulf Coast of Mississippi, the North Shore above New Orleans at Mandeville, Covington, that region, and then in Metairie is we're trying to shoot for having events almost monthly. I know because the timing and such might not every month, but I'll tell you, my goal this year in each of the communities is to hold somewhere around anywhere from 6 to 8 events in the communities there, because we've had demand for it, and now we're going to work on fulfilling that, because people need that information to make decisions on Social Security, on investing, on estate planning, all those things. And if you can increase knowledge, whether or not you want to work with us or not, you can go and increase your knowledge and get to know us. And if you want to use us sometime in the future. There's no obligation to meet with us or to become a client, but we want to put that information out there and kind of be of a service to the community out there. And from a community standpoint, we have a lot of folks that we like to mention here that support the show as well and help make this possible. And some of these are guests on the show as well. Dwayne Stein of mortgagegumbo.com. So you can tell he's in the mortgage business. He's a regular guest on the show. And so we appreciate Dwayne. Jude Heath, J. Heath and Company CPAs. And he's kind of our preferred partner regarding your tax returns and so forth, and they've gotten into their busy time of year as well. And then Wesley Blanchard, wjblanchardlaw.com, he helps on the estate planning side as well. So we appreciate that help on there. Both Jude and Wes are also guests on the show on a regular basis. I had mentioned Pat Huber earlier over at First South Farm Credit. And in the communities and talking to people, sometimes, when I get out and about, sometimes there was a gentleman that he works on heavy equipment. And I happened to be talking to him about some heavy equipment. And he says, you sound just like this guy I listened to. So, and he talked a few minutes about this guy he listens to on the radio. And he said, you sure like him? I said, well, yeah, coincidentally, it's me. It's who you've been listening to. So we had a great conversation. So, but it turns out that, I've talked to some people in rural communities, farmers and such as that. And you know what? We got a lot of listeners out there. So it's one reason I told Pat, I said, we'll talk about what you do out there. And if you're looking to refinance some acreage or buy some acreage or timber property or a farm, that's kind of Pat's thing. Their go-to thing is helping you work through that. They have a great program, and that is firstsouthfarmcredit.com. His number is 985-748-8655. And if you reach out to Pat, tell him Gregory sent you. Another folks we got to think that make this possible is iHeartMedia. I've been doing this show with them for years and years now, and they're the reason I do a radio show. So have to thank them as well, and we appreciate you listening to iHeartRadio. MosquitoJoe.com I'm a big fan of them because I hate mosquitoes. I wish all my neighbors would utilize them, and some of my neighbors do. Why? Because we can create a bubble, and mosquitoes don't bother us. It's like they create a perimeter. MosquitoJoe.com. So reach out to them. And Spitali's Deli is another caterer that we utilize, and also Gregory Ricks and Associates. Yeah, reach out to them and get you some help. Copy of my book. If you reach out to us at the firm, and if you'd like, I'll send you a signed copy of the book, or you can just go out to Amazon and order it. But I know people over there. I can hook you up with a signed copy of the book. Retirement Deserves a Helpful Hand out there. And let me see, who else did I get? Mosquito Joe, Spitales, Gregory Ricks, Total Wealth, and another guy that I've utilized for years. And I had a discussion with him the other day when he was doing some audio work at the house for me. And I asked him, do you ever ask how they referred or if they came from me mentioning on the show and all? He said, no, I never really ask. I'm uncomfortable with that. I said, you shouldn't be uncomfortable with that. That's really important to know how they come to calling you. Was it your website? Was it a commercial you ran? Was it on my show? Was it a referral? And I always like to tell other people about good things. And Jeff over at JJS Audio, and let me say it correctly because this is his website, jjsaudiovideo.com. And I told him, you should ask everybody how you came about it and ask them to refer somebody. And I'm going to refer you to him because he does great work, and I've used him for over a decade, and he handles security cameras, our TVs, sound systems, audio, video, kind of all that stuff. And he's awesome. Something breaks, I call him up, and he gets it handled. And he does new construction wiring for all that stuff or adding it on to your home. So, and his phone number is 504-638-0906. And for all of these, if you're reaching out to any of these sponsors that we have for the show, just tell them Gregory sent you. Tell them you listened to the show and appreciate that. And and tell your friends and family about this radio show and about the firm and the good things that we do. And it's a safe place because nobody's going to pressure them. And the reason for your family, your friend, you're not our only appointment. I assure you of that. We're very successful, and we have stuff going on. We work with a lot of families out there, and that's what we want to be able to do is provide help. So I've got a couple things in mind here. One article I came across this week was kind of talking about starting early with retirement planning. If you've got a child, you should get them started. They should have a Trump account. If you've just had a child born, you should set them up a Trump account. Please do that so they can start compounding growth of their money. And there's an article here on Investopedia. Start retirement planning in your 20s. Easy steps, even if you're feeling lost. One of the things that people never talked about money and educating, and we should have those conversations, and we should have the openness in families, and ask your kids, even if you haven't talked to them about it, and don't be embarrassed. So, well, I don't have a retirement plan. Why should I ask them about if they have a retirement plan? Tell them don't make the mistake that you made then is a way to start the conversation. Do you have a retirement plan? Who are you working with? What does that plan look like? What is the goal of it? If not, you should get that started. One of the takeaways, ask them. Just like on the other hand, I think your kids should be asking you, how is your retirement plan going? Do you have a retirement plan? Are you working with a financial advisor? What does retirement look for you? Do you have health care solved? On the other end, they should ask, how are you doing? No, really, how are you doing from a health standpoint? You should be open and sharing that. But I digress. I can get off to so many topics with that. But in this article was key takeaways. Starting a 401k early gives you compound interest, more time to grow your savings. So it gives your compound interest more time to grow your savings. You know what and I've kind of always done this, but I've been thinking about resetting this to 50, so it maybe helps people with the math and think it's more achievable. But I always say the first block of money, the hardest to accumulate, is that $100,000. Your first $100,000 is the hardest. You know what's the easiest? Your second $100,000. Why? Because your 100,000 at 7.2%, if that's your average return, hypothetically, can double in 10 years. And what did you have to do for that to happen? You did nothing. So your second 100,000 is the easiest 100,000 you'll ever make. And actually, it all just kind of self-perpetuates from there, because that next 10 years, you're going to add 200,000. And did you have to do anything? No, you just let it percolate, just let it grow. But you should keep adding to it. You should go and say, okay, I've got 100,000. I know what this can start doing over the next 10, 20, 30 years. But now I got to go get another 100,000. Can I do that faster and add to it and keep that compounding going? So part of that starting with employer plans. If you're looking for, and look, I hire people, I do interviews and such, and we do we, as an employer, we have a great retirement plan, and we contribute and match, and we think it's important. But when I'm conducting a first interview, there's things I ask about them to get to know them, because I've done this for a long time. I know what a traits of a good employee are, and we do some testing as well, because there's certain things we look for to have a successful new employee. You know what they don't do on a first interview? They don't say, well, what's really important to me is the firm's retirement plan. Tell me about your 401k. I never get asked that on a first interview. We do share it with them that we have that, but nobody goes and says, tell me about your 401k. And when they come in to the office because we do the first meeting's always a Zoom. It's a technology test. If you can't get on and successfully join us on a Zoom, we're probably, I know I say probably, we're not doing a second interview. It's not happening. If you can't do that as a first interview, because the second one is an in-office. And we do talk about the benefits of being an employee. So we kind of go over some of that stuff. But once again, nobody circles back and says, hey, hold on. Can we go back to that 401k? Tell me a little bit. What are the investment options? How much do you match? Nobody focuses on that. And I'm telling you, as a worker, it's one of the most important things that you have. And it should be, tell me about the 401k. What are the options? How much can I put into it? How much is the matching. Is there a Roth opportunity there? Because I want to build tax-free money. What other benefits do you have on the 401k? What if I work here? How much can I probably grow into the plan? What is the matching? You know, those type of things. Why you as a worker should be very interested in that. Like, okay, if I go to work here, when can I start contributing to it? When can I move my old plan money over? Think about that. Maybe that's a conversation you have with your kids, because when you should be asking, have you started an IRA? Do you have a Roth? Do you have a 401k? If you've got teenagers, you might start teaching them this right now. Is like, when you're going to work for somebody, you need to make sure they have a retirement plan. You're going to spend your life working. You got to have a plan right out from the get-go to start accumulating wealth. Because you know the most difficult money is your first 100,000 you save. You know what the easiest money? The next 100,000, because it just starts perpetuating. You could do the story with what's the hard. It could be 10,000. I just like that 100,000 number because it's so powerful, knowing you get 100,000 and you just leave it to work. In 10 years, it doubles. It just becomes self-replicating money. That's the magic of compound interest. And if they're going to work for an employer, there should be automation there. It just starts making them money. You work for money so you can live your life, but your company you work for should be replicating money for you in the long term. Start something that can perpetuate. Employer matching is essentially free money that accelerates long-term returns. And therefore, you want to have good options. If you got a 401k, one of the things we do for folks is we will help you with your 401k. And we will not charge a fee for doing so on that 401k. And if all you have is that 401k and you need help with it, reach out to us. We have a program for that. Oh my gosh, the music's playing. I'm out of time. Here's what you do. Call us, 504-832-9200. The website's gregoryricks.com. Email info@gregoryricks.com. Join us here next Saturday again, and call us and come in and visit us at the office, Mississippi, Louisiana, or across the country. Y'all have a blessed weekend. We'll see you here next Saturday.
Investment advisory products and services made available through AE Wealth Management, LLC, a registered investment advisor. Insurance products are offered through the insurance business Gregory Ricks & Associates, Incorporated. AE Wealth Management does not offer insurance products. The insurance products offered by Gregory Ricks & Associates, Incorporated are not subject to investment advisor requirements. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Any references to protection, safety, or lifetime income generally refer to fixed insurance products, never securities or investments. Insurance guarantees are backed by the financial strength and claims-paying ability of the issuing carrier. This radio show was intended for informational purposes only. It is not intended to be used as the sole basis for a financial decision, nor should it be construed as advice designed to meet the particular needs of an individual situation. Gregory Ricks & Associates is not permitted to offer, and no statement made during the show shall constitute tax or legal advice. Our firm is not affiliated with or endorsed by the U.S. government or any governmental agency. The information and opinions contained herein provided by third parties have been obtained from sources believed to be reliable, but accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed by Gregory Ricks & Associates. Please remember that converting an employer plan account to a Roth IRA is a taxable event. Increased taxable income from the Roth IRA conversion may have several consequences, including but not limited to a need for additional tax withholding or estimated tax payments, the loss of certain tax deductions and credits, and higher taxes on Social Security benefits and higher Medicare premiums. Be sure to consult with a qualified tax advisor before making any decisions regarding your IRA. Neither AE Wealth Management nor advisors providing investment advisory services through AE Wealth Management recommend or facilitate facilitate the buying or selling of cryptocurrencies. Third parties and guests of the show are not affiliated with, nor do their opinions reflect those of Gregory Ricks and Associates or AE Wealth Management. AE Wealth Management provides services without regard to political affiliation, and the views of individual advisors are not necessarily the views of AE Wealth Management. We are winning at life with Gregory Ricks.
News Talk 99.5 WRNO FM, New Orleans, comes from the Mortgage Gumbo Studios.
Your locally trusted home loan lender, MortgageGumbo.com.